Chapter 9: How do you deal with negotiating with people who are very hard or people who are pro at negotiation? They will, throw punches at you. How do you take those punches? The golden rule that we've learned so far is to treat others the way you want to be treated by them. But that needs to change a little. And the better one would be treat others how they want to be treated, right? So it's not just how you want to be treated by them, but also treat others the way they want to be treated, especially when it comes to negotiation. And once you spend a little bit of time to understand someone as to what are their dominant characteristics, what is their style, what makes them unique, because everyone has different upbringing, they have different childhood experiences, different schooling, different family, different culture, different upbringing with various factors, millions of factors, right? And so understanding the other person is important. And there are three types of negotiating styles, but there could be many more. But the three that are in this chapter is someone could be an accommodator, someone could be an analyst, or someone could be an assertive or type A, right? So being you, understanding first yourself, like what is your dominant style? And then really spending some time to understand the other person's dominant style will give you a lot of edge. And the key thing to take away is to know yourself. Like, what is your dominant style, and be you. If you are being yourself, then you're going to bring the best to the table of negotiation. And so, three different types of negotiating styles based on the personality. If someone is an analyst, they will aim their maximum domination, their dominant optimum strategy is to get the right solution. No matter how long it takes, just get the right solution. Don't make any mistakes. If it's an assertive, it's like getting things done. Like they want to get it done fast, and time for them is money. For an accommodator, it could be win-win. They want to just focus on relationship. They want to keep talking, free flow of information. That's their key optimization function. And they all give different importance to time. An analyst will take as long as it takes. Accommodator, again, takes as long as it takes. But assertive is like, get to the point, get it done yesterday, right? So they want to get it done soon. Voice and tone is also very different. Assertive is like direct and candid, whereas an analyst is like FMDJ voice, soothing. An accommodator is mostly friendly. An analyst hates surprise. Right? They don't like surprises. If you give them data that was missing, or if you give them constraint that was missing onto the problem, or if you throw them off with some new information at the last minute, they'll hate you. Accommodators, they hate pauses. Even if you're like, let's say, an analyst and you're trying to think, they're like, hey, if this person not telling me something, so they want to just keep free flow information. They hate pauses. And an assertive type A, they hate not being heard. So if you don't hear them and mirror them and acknowledge what they have said, you're going to have a very hard time. And then the work style is also very different. Analyst works alone. Accommodator, generally with the team, always like works in a team setting, working sessions. And assertive is like, alone and my way or the highway. Like, it's very quick decision making. They have answers that are quick. Accommodator, not very clear, very ambiguous, very difficult to get, like what is their real true objective. And analysts, again, can't think on their feet, right? But assertive is like quick. They'll make decisions. They'll make it confidently. So an area for each of these styles to improve, because at any given point you would want to know your dominant style, but also be able to bring out these other styles when there is a need to bring them up. So learning how to improve on each of these advantages is important. So if you're an analyst, you figure out how do you think more on the go, like an assertive. If you're an accommodator, be conscious about time, just talking versus getting to an objective. So get an objective and translate your talk to action, right? And assertive, is seek to listen, seek to ask instead of just tell. So once you do that, then you have a pro, and you can take the pros of each of these styles and then adapt. the maximum impact here happens when you can invoke each of these and then actually play your dominant style for most of the time. But you should be able to invoke being assertive, invoke being accommodative, invoke being an analyst in you, so that you can actually play your dominant style. But then when you know the other person's dominant style, you will actually, for an analyst, if you know your counterpart is an analyst, you will not give them surprises. You'll give them early heads up. If it's an assertive type A, you repeat and acknowledge that you've heard them. So understand your counterpart. It'll be easier to take the punches. They will give you the punch, but treat others the way they want to be treated. Know that and spend a little bit of time understanding that. And if you want to really take a punch, you would want to prepare for it. You just don't want to go to a negotiation table and just wing it, right? You want to prepare, right? You want to have your goals as to what is your number, what's the agenda. You want to have your questions prepared. You want to have your labels, responses. You would want to really do your research. You want to prepare for the negotiation. Don't just expect to win by winging it, because when the pro negotiator will punch you with, let's say, an extreme anger, right? How do you take that punch? A lot of emotions will rise. You will have feelings of anger, sometimes some feeling of unfairness. How do you deal with that with poise? Requires a lot of preparation, requires a lot of practice, requires you to fail at some of these as well. So you need to have your boundaries, but people will, with an extreme anger, maybe go well beyond your boundaries. So learning how to take a punch, and sometimes even punching back without anger, right? Without anger, that's the key, is important. And the pro tip here is to not make enemy out of your negotiator, right? If you look at your counterpart as an enemy, then your words, your actions, how you talk to them, all of that will come out of that accusation, and it will not feel right. The other person will become defensive. Their guards will be up. They'll not be willing to negotiate. So how do you punch? With the right words, tone of voice, in your body language, without anger, and without those emotions is key. Remember the last few videos we learned about emotional regulation. None of this works. None of negotiation ever works if you cannot regulate your emotion. So as leaders, each one of us need to learn how to self-regulate ourselves. Never create an enemy, because if you do, even if you say few things to them, they will retaliate. They'll remember that you hurt them, or that you said something that got them to feel bad. They will retaliate in some fashion, and you don't want that. You just want to take the business forward. So take a punch, sometimes give a punch back, but without anger. That's the key. And the way you give a punch back is sometimes you may not be able to punch back because they've just given you a punch. So you would want to deflect that punch. If possible, don't take it head on. Like, if they're punching you, just deflect a little. So you could deflect it completely by, let's say they give you a low anchor and a number. You say, hey, let's put this thing X on the side for a moment and talk about what would it make to build the best solution. Now you've completely ignored their punch of a low number or a low ball, or like an ask for more people or whatever that is, and you've just gone and completely ignored what they did, and you've like focusing them onto something that they would want to focus on as well, which is like the best solution or the best deal or the best outcome. So having your punches with deflection is the starting point, which is like, hey, I feel X because you did Y, because you said Y, and that's also one way to self-focus on like how you feel about it. So that's also a way to get them to empathize with you. And a punch back could be also, how am I supposed to accept that, or how am I supposed to give you this, or what are we trying to accomplish, like stepping back, right? All of these questions or suggestions get you to deflect the punches. And there is a 4-step Ackerman plan that's shared in this book, which also gets you to um, be the ones to punch first. Most of the time, you want the counterpart to go first and let them go with their anchor so that you know what the base is that you want to start with. So the 4 steps here is, if you have to go first, then start your offer at the 65th percent of your target price. If you're trying to negotiate, let's say, a car, or if you're trying to negotiate the number of people that you want, start at the 65th that you have to give, right? And then that is your extreme low anchor, right? Have a goal and then go at the 65th. And that only happens if you do your research. If you don't do your research, you cannot really calculate this. And then have your increments lower and lower. So 65 to 85, it's a higher increment. 85 to 95 is a lower increment. 95 to 100, even lower increment. So have 3 raises of decreasing increments. Wait for the counter to get better before you give your raise. And you do that with calibrated questions and labeling, which you've learned a lot in the past few videos. And then all of those are just ways of saying no without using the word no, right? And end your final offer with a non-round odd number. It has a lot of emphasis that you've done your research. Remember, we all like $1.99 instead of $2 items, right? So that is the Ackerman plan. And this has a lot of psychology behind all of this, right? There's emotional anchor when you go to your 65th percent of your target price. You're doing extreme anchoring. And then reciprocity, because you're having raises, they will also want to raise and come down. And empathy with calibrated questions, and loss aversion with a final round odd number. So this is pretty fantastic. Good luck in your negotiation. The chapter also has a really good negotiation on rent. Like, a person got a request to pay more rent, and then he was negotiated with a pretty good example. So I'd highly encourage reading the book. Chapter 9 on extreme negotiation, so negotiating hard with those people and taking punches. So Ackerman plan would be fantastic to learn. Thanks.